Ambassador Kethvar stepped off the transport shuttle and into the chaos of Nexus Station. The massive space station floated in neutral space, far from any government's control. Here, the galaxy's most dangerous soldiers came to find work. Wars were planned in its dark corners. Armies were hired in its smoky bars. Death was bought and sold like any other product. The hegemony diplomat adjusted his formal robes and walked through the crowded corridors. Aliens of every shape and size pushed past him. Some had too many arms, others had scales instead of skin. A few glowed with their own inner light. All of them looked dangerous. Kethvar had unlimited credits in his account and a simple job to offer. Kill 12 humans, just 12. It should have been easy money for any mercenary company. But something felt wrong as he approached the first office. The sign on the door read, "Shard Hunters, we break what cannot be broken." Inside, crystalline beings moved with deadly grace. Their leader, a creature made of living diamond, looked at the contract details on his screen. The alien's faceted face showed no emotion, but his answer came quickly. "No." "You haven't heard my offer yet," Kethvar said. "I saw the word human and elite forces. That's enough. Find someone else." The diamond being turned away. The meeting was over. Kethvar tried the next office. The Omega Division specialized in impossible missions. Their soldiers were part machine, part flesh, all killer. Surely they would take any job for the right price. The cyborg commander didn't even let him finish explaining. "Human special operations? Are you insane? We have a rule. We don't take suicide missions. But the payment could be every credit in the galaxy. Still no." The commander's mechanical eye glowed red. "Next." Office after office gave him the same answer. The Void Stalkers, who hunted across star systems, refused. The Blood Ravens, who had never lost a battle, declined. Even the Nightmare Legion, mercenaries so cruel that governments hired them to scare their own enemies, wouldn't take the job. Each refusal came with strange warnings. "We don't hunt what hunts us back. Find another species to throw away. Some prey is too dangerous." Kethvar couldn't understand it. These were the galaxy's most feared warriors. They had destroyed planets. They had ended wars. They had made entire species extinct. But 12 humans made them all say no. His last hope was the Corvan warlord Thraknal. The scarred alien had fought in more wars than most species had even heard of. His massive frame was covered in battle honors from 100 worlds. Surely he wouldn't be afraid of anything. Thraknal listened to the whole offer. He studied the payment details. He looked at the mission files. Then he laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You really don't know, do you?" the warlord said. "Know what?" "Why no one will take this job." Thraknal leaned back in his chair. "Sit down, young diplomat. Let me tell you about human elite forces." Kethvar sat, eager to finally get answers. 15 years ago, I was hired to raid human colonies. Easy work, we thought. Humans were new to space, weak, soft. We hit 3 worlds before they sent their special forces after us. The warlord's scarred face grew serious. They sent 8 humans. 8. Against my army of 2,000 warriors. We laughed at first. Then they started hunting us. What happened? They turned us against each other, made us paranoid, made us afraid. They didn't fight like normal soldiers. They fought like ghosts, like nightmares. By the time we figured out their tactics, most of my army was dead. Not from human weapons, but from our own fear and confusion. Thraknal stood and walked to his wall of trophies. Weapons from defeated enemies covered every surface, but one spot was empty. I kept that space for the human weapon I would take as a trophy. But they never used weapons I could steal. They used our minds against us. They used our own strength to destroy us. He turned back to Kethvar. I escaped with barely 100 warriors. Most of them never recovered from what they experienced. But surely, no. Thraknal's voice was final. I've seen what human elite forces can do. They don't just kill you. They make you kill yourself. They turn your greatest strengths into weaknesses. They make you afraid of shadows and sounds. They break your mind before they break your body. The warlord walked back to his desk. Every mercenary company has stories like mine, some worse. We all learned the same lesson. You don't hunt human special forces. They hunt you. Kethvar felt a chill run through his body. But it's just 12 soldiers. Just 12? Thraknal laughed again. That makes it worse, not better. When humans send small teams, it means they think those few can handle whatever they're facing. And they're usually right. There must be someone willing to take the job. Maybe. But anyone stupid enough to hunt human elite forces won't live long enough to collect payment. Thraknal sat down and began working on other papers. My advice? Withdraw your request. Find another way to solve your problem. Because hiring someone to fight those humans will only create a bigger problem. Kethvar left Nexus Station empty-handed. As his shuttle prepared to leave, he received a message from the station's administrator. It was a simple warning, sent to all visitors. Reminder, contracts targeting human special operations forces are discouraged due to extremely high casualty rates among contractors. The ambassador stared at the message in disbelief. Somewhere in the galaxy, 12 humans were doing their job, completely unaware that every professional killer in known space was afraid of them. The reputation of human elite forces had become so terrible that even mentioning their name ended conversations. As his ship jumped to hyperspace, Kethvar wondered what kind of species humanity really was. What had they done to earn this level of fear? What kind of war had taught the galaxy's deadliest killers to run from 12 humans? He was about to find out, because the Hegemony Coalition wasn't going to let 12 humans stop their expansion plans. If no alien force would fight them, they would create their own solution. They would build an army specifically designed to kill human elite forces. The ambassador smiled grimly as he planned his next move. The galaxy might be afraid of humans, but fear could be overcome. It just required the right approach, the right soldiers, and the right preparation. He was wrong, of course, but he wouldn't learn that until it was too late. 15 years earlier, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched 200 enemy ships approach. The Zephyrian Empire had come to take Kepler's Gate, and she had only 20 human vessels to stop them. The colony world below held the most important strategic position in human space. The stable wormhole junction near the planet could transport ships instantly to the resource-rich Andromeda Arm. Whoever controlled Kepler's Gate controlled the future of human expansion. Emperor Vorthak of the Zephyrians had sent his best fleet. His ships were larger than the human vessels. His weapons were more powerful. His shields were stronger. By every military calculation, the humans should have surrendered immediately. But Admiral Chen wasn't thinking about conventional warfare. She was thinking about the 800 special operations soldiers currently preparing for deployment in her ship's cargo bays. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, enemy fleet will be in weapons range in 2 hours. They're demanding our surrender. Open a channel to all ships, Chen ordered. Begin Operation Phantom. Across the human fleet, cargo bay doors opened. Small, dark shapes launched into space. They looked like debris or maintenance pods to enemy sensors. In reality, they were specially modified insertion craft carrying humanity's most elite warriors. Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Delta Force, British SAS, Russian Spetsnaz, and soldiers from a dozen other special operations units drifted silently toward the massive Zephyrian fleet. Each pod contained a small team with one simple mission: get aboard enemy ships and cause chaos. The Zephyrians never saw them coming. Commander Jake Morrison of SEAL Team 6 felt his pod bump against the hull of a Zephyrian dreadnought. His team cut through the outer armor using molecular torches that left no trace. Within minutes, they were inside enemy territory. The Zephyrians were tall, proud beings with blue skin and multiple arms. They were excellent warriors in formal battle, but they had never faced human special operations tactics. Their security focused on external threats, not enemies who were already inside their ships. Morrison's team moved through maintenance shafts and service corridors. They planted listening devices and small explosives. They hacked into computer systems and downloaded tactical data. Most importantly, they began psychological warfare. In the ship's galley, they rearranged food supplies to spell out human words. In the armory, they moved weapons around so inventory wouldn't match. In crew quarters, they left small objects in different places. Nothing dangerous, nothing obvious. Just enough to let the aliens know someone had been there. The same scene played out across the entire Zephyrian fleet. Human operators infiltrated ship after ship. Some came through cargo bays during routine supply transfers. Others cut through hulls during the confusion of fleet movements. A few even spacewalked from ship to ship during combat maneuvers, using the enemy's own engine wash to mask their approach. Captain Sarah Williams of the SAS found herself aboard the Zephyrian command vessel. Her mission was simple: monitor enemy communications and cause confusion when possible. She accomplished both by hacking the ship's internal network and sending false orders between different departments. Suddenly, the ship's weapons department received orders to rotate their targeting systems for maintenance. The engineering section was told to reduce power to shields for efficiency testing. The navigation team got instructions to change course for a tactical formation adjustment. None of these orders came from the ship's officers. They came from Williams, sitting in a storage compartment with a portable computer. The Zephyrians followed the orders because they appeared to come from their own command structure. Similar chaos erupted throughout the fleet. Ships began receiving contradictory orders. Weapon systems powered down unexpectedly. Navigation computers started showing false readings. Worse, the problem seemed random and impossible to track. On the flagship of the Zephyrian fleet, Admiral Krestevar grew increasingly frustrated. His sensors showed no human infiltrators, but his ships were experiencing system failures across the board. Some of his captains reported strange occurrences: moved objects, accessed computer terminals, weapons that had been disassembled and reassembled. "It's impossible," his intelligence officer reported. "Our security shows no breaches, but someone is aboard our ships." "Ghosts don't hack computer systems," Admiral Krestevar snapped. "Find these infiltrators and kill them." But the Zephyrians couldn't find what they couldn't understand. Human special operations forces didn't fight like normal soldiers. They avoided direct confrontation. They struck at infrastructure, morale, and communication. They made the enemy defeat themselves. Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez of Delta Force demonstrated this perfectly when he reached the reactor control room of a Zephyrian battlecruiser. Instead of sabotaging the reactor, which would kill innocent crew members, he simply adjusted the power distribution. The ship's weapons became unreliable. Its shields flickered randomly. Its engines produced uneven thrust. The ship's engineers spent hours trying to fix problems that would disappear as soon as they found them, because Rodriguez kept making new adjustments from different locations. Meanwhile, the main battle began. 20 human ships engaged 200 Zephyrian vessels in what should have been a massacre. But the Zephyrian ships were fighting each other as much as they were fighting humans. Confused orders had scattered their formations. Unreliable weapons made their fire less effective. Random system failures broke their coordination. Some ships even fired on each other when false targeting data identified friendly vessels as enemies. The human fleet pressed their advantage. They focused on ships that were already disabled by their infiltrators. They exploited the confusion to separate individual vessels from the main group. They used the Zephyrians' own size against them, darting between larger ships like fighters. But the real victory was psychological. As the battle continued, Zephyrian crews became paranoid. They started seeing infiltrators everywhere. Guards abandoned their posts to search for intruders. Officers questioned every order. Engineers blamed sabotage for every malfunction. Master Chief Petty Officer David Thompson of the Navy SEALs watched this unfold from inside a Zephyrian supply ship. He had done nothing except move some tools and leave a small human insignia where the crew would find it. The entire ship was now in chaos as dozens of Zephyrians searched for enemies who weren't there. The battle lasted 72 hours. When it ended, the Zephyrian Empire had lost 160 ships. The human fleet had lost 3 vessels and suffered moderate damage to 7 others. But numbers didn't tell the real story. The Zephyrian Empire had suffered a psychological defeat that would affect them for generations. Their most elite fleet had been destroyed not by superior firepower, but by fear, confusion, and paranoia. The surviving Zephyrian ships retreated to their home space, carrying stories that would spread throughout the galaxy. Stories of human soldiers who fought like ghosts. Stories of enemies who could be anywhere, anytime, invisible and unstoppable. Admiral Chen received a message from the Zephyrian Emperor himself. It was a simple statement of surrender and a promise that his empire would never again threaten human space. The Battle of Kepler's Gate became legend. More importantly, it established a truth that every military force in the galaxy would learn. Human special operations soldiers were not just warriors. They were psychological weapons that could turn any enemy's strength into weakness. The legend of human elite forces was born in the wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet, and it would only grow stronger with time. Ambassador Kethavar stood before the Hegemony High Command, his report still echoing in the vast chamber. Every mercenary company in the galaxy had refused their contract. Even the most desperate killers wouldn't hunt human elite forces. High Commander Vextal's 4 arms gestured with obvious anger. Unacceptable. 12 humans cannot be allowed to stop our expansion into the Outer Rim. Their base on Sigma 7 Moon controls 3 strategic jump points. We need those routes. The mercenaries fear human special operations soldiers, Kethavar explained. They have stories, legends. They believe humans fight like demons. Superstition, growled General Morthak, his scales turning dark red with frustration. Every species has elite soldiers. Humans are flesh and blood, same as any other. Military advisor Zenthara, the only hegemony leader who had actually fought humans, spoke quietly. The stories aren't superstition. I was at the Kepler's Gate battle. I saw what they did to the Zephyrian fleet. Those humans don't fight like normal soldiers. Then we make our own solution, High Commander Vextal declared. If existing armies won't fight humans, we'll build one that will. Project Apex begins immediately. The plan was ambitious and expensive. The hegemony would recruit from species that had never encountered human warriors, fresh soldiers without psychological conditioning against humans. They would combine this with the most advanced technology available and the galaxy's best military training. General Vextar, the hegemony's most decorated officer, was put in charge of the project. His first task was recruitment from the galaxy's outer regions, where human influence had never reached. From the savage rim worlds, he recruited Korth warriors. The Korth were 8 feet tall and built like living weapons. Their culture honored death in battle above all else. Fear was unknown to them because their religion promised eternal glory for those who died fighting. The Korth recruits arrived at the secret training facility with excitement. Finally, they would face the legendary human warriors. Their leader, Chieftain Graktos, brought his finest 100 warriors. All had killed in single combat. All dreamed of adding human skulls to their trophy collections. From the artificial intelligence networks, Vextar recruited synthetic soldiers. These beings had been programmed without fear responses. They calculated optimal combat solutions without emotional interference. Pain meant nothing to them. Death was just a system shutdown. The synthetic volunteers came in perfect formation, their mechanical bodies gleaming with built-in weapons. Unit Commander Prime 7 analyzed the mission parameters and declared them within acceptable risk tolerances for successful completion. Most controversial was the recruitment of Nexali soldiers. The Nexali were a hive mind species that shared consciousness across their entire race. Individual fear couldn't exist because courage was collective. When one Nexali felt brave, they all did. When one found a tactical solution, they all knew it instantly. A full battalion of Nexali warriors joined the project. Their queen node, designated Harmony of Battle, explained that eliminating human elite forces would benefit all Nexali by removing a psychological threat to their expansion plans. General Vexitar studied every piece of intelligence the hegemony had gathered about human tactics. He watched battle recordings from Kepler's Gate dozens of times. He analyzed after-action reports from every engagement involving human special forces. He interviewed survivors from conflicts across the galaxy. The pattern was always the same. Humans avoided direct confrontation. They used stealth, misdirection, and psychological warfare. They turned enemy strengths into weaknesses. They made their opponents defeat themselves through paranoia and confusion. "We can counter this," Vexitar told his assembled force during their final briefing. "The key is understanding their methods. They rely on surprise and fear. We will deny them both." He had equipped his soldiers with the most advanced sensors available: heat detection, motion tracking, electromagnetic scanning, and even experimental consciousness detectors that could theoretically identify human thought patterns. Their armor was the best the hegemony could produce: energy shields, kinetic dampeners, environmental seals, and integrated communication systems that couldn't be hacked by external sources. Their weapons were devastating: plasma rifles that could punch through starship hulls, molecular disruptors that broke down matter at the atomic level, gravity weapons that could crush enemies inside their own armor. "Remember," Vexitar emphasized, "humans use our expectations against us. They make us see threats where none exist and miss real dangers. Stay alert, trust your equipment, and follow the plan." The plan was comprehensive. Orbital bombardment would destroy obvious hiding places. Ground forces would advance in coordinated groups with overlapping fields of fire. Air support would provide constant surveillance. No human could hide from such overwhelming coverage. The target was simple: Reaper Squad, currently operating from a forward base on Sigma-7 Moon. Intelligence suggested 12 human operators were using the base to disrupt hegemony supply lines. Satellite imagery showed their compound, their vehicles, and their patrol routes. 3,000 elite soldiers against 12 humans. Advanced technology against primitive equipment. Careful planning against human improvisation. The odds couldn't be more favorable. Chieftain Graktos sharpened his ceremonial war blade and planned how he would take human heads as trophies. Unit Commander Prime 7 calculated a 97.3% probability of mission success. Harmony of Battle shared confidence across the entire Nexali network. The transport fleet departed for Sigma-7 with the largest anti-human force ever assembled. General Vexitar felt confident that his carefully selected troops would succeed where mercenaries had failed. After all, what could 12 humans do against 3,000 soldiers who knew their tricks? During the journey, Vexitar reviewed the mission files one more time. Reaper Squad consisted of ordinary human soldiers, no special powers, no advanced technology, just standard special operations equipment and training. They were good at their jobs, but they were still mortal. The general dismissed the stories about human elite forces being supernatural. Fear made people exaggerate. Defeat made commanders invent excuses. When this mission succeeded, the galaxy would see that humans were just another species that could be conquered with proper preparation. As the fleet approached Sigma-7 Moon, Vextar opened a communication channel to his forces. Remember your training. Trust your equipment. Follow the plan. Today, we prove that human elite forces are not invincible. The Korth warriors roared their battle cries. The synthetic soldiers acknowledged orders with mechanical precision. The Nexali shared anticipation across their collective consciousness. None of them realized they were about to become the next chapter in the legend of why no one hunts human special operations forces. None of them understood that their careful preparation and overwhelming numbers were exactly what the humans had been counting on. Down on Sigma 7, 12 human operators received word of the approaching fleet. Master Sergeant Elena Rodriguez read the intelligence report and smiled grimly. "Well, boys," she announced to her team, "looks like someone finally decided to test our reputation. Let's make sure they understand why the smart money stays away." Reaper Squad began their preparations, not for defense, but for education. They were about to teach the galaxy another lesson about why even alien troops wouldn't accept jobs targeting human elite forces. The largest anti-human military force in galactic history was about to learn what the mercenaries already knew. Some legends exist because they're true. The Hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace around Sigma 7 Moon with perfect precision. General Vextar watched his forces deploy exactly as planned. 3,000 elite soldiers, orbital bombardment ships, and air support craft moved into position around the small moon. "Target acquired," reported Captain Mordak from the lead bombardment vessel. "Human base located at coordinates 7 Alpha, beginning preliminary strikes." Energy beams lanced down from orbit, turning the human compound into smoking craters. Buildings vaporized instantly. Vehicles melted into slag. The entire area became a wasteland of fused rock and twisted metal. "Direct hits confirmed," Mordak announced. "No life signs detected in target area." General Vextar felt satisfied as he watched the destruction. Perhaps the humans had fled when they detected the approaching fleet. Perhaps they had died in the bombardment. Either way, the mission would be completed quickly and efficiently. "Deploy ground forces," he ordered. "Secure the area and confirm elimination of all targets." The first wave consisted of 500 Korth warriors. They landed in heavy assault pods, eager to find human survivors to fight. Chieftain Graktos led his warriors through the smoking ruins, their sensors scanning for any sign of life. "Nothing here," Graktos reported. "Cowards ran before we arrived. No honor in this hunt." But Sergeant First Class Mike Chen was watching the Korth from a cave system 2 miles away. His team had abandoned the obvious base 3 days ago when their sensors detected the approaching fleet. The compound had been empty except for some old equipment and a few surprises they left behind. "Reaper 6 to all stations," Chen whispered into his communicator. "Phase 1 complete. Beginning harassment protocol." The human team had spent months studying Sigma 7's terrain. The moon was a maze of caves, underground rivers, and unstable geological formations. The surface looked simple, but below ground was a 3-dimensional puzzle that only they understood. From his hidden position, Chen activated the first surprise. The destroyed human base suddenly erupted in a massive explosion. The blast wasn't meant to kill anyone. The Korth were too far away. It was meant to send a message. Chieftain Graktos spun toward the explosion, his warriors raising their weapons. Where moments before there had been ruins, now there was only a deep crater. The explosion had come from below ground, triggered by sensors they hadn't detected. "Report," General Vextar demanded from orbit. "Secondary explosion at target site. Appears to be booby trap. No casualties, but..." Graktos paused as his warriors began finding things in the rubble. Human equipment that shouldn't exist if the base had been abandoned. Fresh food supplies. Recent reports with today's date. "Sir," one of his warriors called out, "these supplies are still warm. Someone was here minutes ago." Vextar felt his first moment of unease. His intelligence had shown 12 humans operating from this base. If they hadn't fled and hadn't died in the bombardment, where were they? He got his answer when Synthetic Unit Prime 7 reported from the eastern approach. Detecting electromagnetic anomalies. Our communication systems are experiencing interference. Source unknown. Specialist Rodriguez was currently inside the moon's mineral processing facility, using industrial equipment to generate electromagnetic pulses. The facility had been abandoned years ago, but its massive generators still worked. She had spent 2 days learning how to turn mining equipment into a jamming system. The synthetic soldiers' perfect coordination began breaking down as their communication links failed intermittently. Orders became garbled. Status reports turned into static. Unit Commander Prime 7 tried to compensate by switching to backup frequencies, but Rodriguez anticipated this and jammed those too. Maintain formation, Prime 7 transmitted on the last working channel. Proceed with search pattern despite communication difficulties. But the synthetic soldiers were designed to work as a network. Without constant data sharing, their efficiency dropped dramatically. They began making individual decisions instead of optimal group choices. Some moved too fast, others too slow. Their perfect formation became a confused scatter. Meanwhile, the Nexali Battalion was experiencing their own problems. Staff Sergeant Williams had found something the Hegemony intelligence hadn't known about, an old research station studying the moon's unusual crystal formations. The crystals naturally amplified and distorted electromagnetic fields, including the psychic energy the Nexali used for their hive-mind connection. Williams didn't understand the science, but she understood the effect. By placing small charges near certain crystal formations, she could create interference patterns that disrupted Nexali communication. Their shared consciousness began experiencing static and dead zones. Harmony of Battle felt the network fragmenting and tried to maintain control. All units converge on mineral processing facility. Humans are using electronic warfare. But half her soldiers couldn't hear the order clearly. Others received it as garbled fragments. The Nexali force began splitting up as different groups followed different interpretations of incomplete commands. General Vextar watched his perfect plan dissolving into chaos. His forces were losing coordination. His communication systems were unreliable. His sensors were giving contradictory readings about human positions. "This is impossible," he muttered. 12 soldiers cannot disrupt 3,000. Master Sergeant Elena Rodriguez spoke into her radio from deep inside the cave system. "Reaper 1 to all stations. Time for Phase 2. Begin active measures." The humans had spent 3 days preparing Sigma 7 Moon for this moment. Every tunnel had been mapped, every cave system explored, every piece of abandoned equipment evaluated for potential use. They had turned the entire moon into their weapon. Corporal Jackson triggered the first active measure from his position near the Korth advance. He had spent hours weakening support pillars in an old mining tunnel. When the Korth warriors moved overhead, he brought down the ceiling. The collapse didn't kill anyone. The Korth armor was too strong. But suddenly, 50 warriors found themselves trapped in a pit with only one way out, while their enemies held the high ground. Chieftain Graktos ordered his men to climb out, but snipers began picking them off from concealed positions. The Korth couldn't see their attackers. The humans were firing from caves, from behind rock formations, from positions that seemed impossible to reach. Each shot came from a different location. Each muzzle flash disappeared before return fire could find it. "Cowards!" Graktos roared. "Face us in honorable combat!" But honor meant nothing to human special operations soldiers. They fought to win, not to satisfy alien concepts of glory. Each Korth warrior who fell was removed from the battlefield with precision and efficiency. Unit Commander Prime 7 detected the gunfire and moved his synthetic forces to assist. His soldiers were immune to fear and fought with mechanical precision, but they encountered a different kind of problem. Sergeant Torres had been busy with the moon's industrial equipment. Mining operations left behind all kinds of useful devices: magnetic field generators, gravity manipulators, molecular separators, all of it still functional, just waiting for someone creative enough to weaponize it. The synthetic soldiers advanced through what looked like open terrain. Suddenly, localized gravity fields activated beneath their feet. Some soldiers found themselves pinned to the ground by triple normal gravity. Others floated helplessly as gravity reversed. A few were caught in gravity shears that twisted their bodies in impossible directions. Prime 7 calculated frantically, trying to find safe paths through the gravity maze. But the field generators were controlled remotely by humans who knew exactly where each trap was located. Every route led into another snare. The Nexali battalion tried to coordinate a response, but their hive mind was still fragmenting from the crystal interference. Different groups received different orders. Some charged forward into obvious traps. Others retreated from imaginary threats. Their greatest strength, shared consciousness, had become a weakness that the humans exploited ruthlessly. Harmony of Battle felt panic creeping through the network. Her soldiers were dying, and she couldn't understand how. The humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. They struck without warning and vanished before retaliation was possible. From orbit, General Vextar watched his forces scatter across the moon's surface. The neat formation he had planned was now a chaotic mess of small groups, fighting individual battles against an enemy they couldn't see. "All units, converge on grid reference 12 Delta," he ordered. "Mass formation for coordinated assault." But Corporal Martinez had anticipated this. When the alien forces began gathering in the designated area, they found themselves in a natural amphitheater surrounded by cliff walls. It looked like a perfect place for a last stand. It was actually a perfect killing field. Human snipers opened fire from concealed positions around the rim. Explosives that had been placed days earlier detonated in sequence, bringing down rock slides that blocked escape routes. Smoke grenades filled the area with thick, choking clouds that confused alien sensors, while human thermal imaging saw through it clearly. The carefully planned hegemony assault had become a nightmare of confusion, friendly fire, and invisible enemies. 3,000 elite soldiers found themselves outwitted, outmaneuvered, and systematically defeated by 12 humans who fought like they owned the entire moon. Because for all practical purposes they did. Sigma 7 had become their territory, and they defended it with the kind of creative violence that had made human elite forces legendary throughout the galaxy. The hunt was indeed beginning, but not the way General Vextar had planned. The humans were hunting his forces, and they were very, very good at it. 6 hours after the assault began, General Vexatar stared at his tactical display in horror. Of his 3,000 elite soldiers, less than 800 remained combat effective. The rest were dead, wounded, trapped, or simply too psychologically broken to continue fighting. The Korth warriors, bred for honor and glory, had discovered that neither mattered against invisible enemies who struck without warning. Half of them were pinned in cave systems, the other half were too paranoid to advance. Chieftain Graktos had stopped giving orders entirely after his 10th lieutenant died from a sniper bullet that seemed to come from empty air. The synthetic soldiers, programmed for logical combat solutions, had encountered problems their programming couldn't solve. How do you calculate optimal tactics against an enemy who uses the environment itself as a weapon? Unit Commander Prime 7 was trapped in a gravity loop, spinning slowly in mid-air while his soldiers watched helplessly. Worst of all were the Nexali. Their hive mind network had completely collapsed under the strain of constant interference and psychological pressure. Individual Nexali wandered the battlefield in confusion, cut off from the collective consciousness that defined their existence. Some had simply shut down mentally. unable to function without the shared thoughts of their species. "Sir," his communication officer reported with a trembling voice, "we're receiving a transmission from the human forces." "Put it through," Vextar ordered, though he dreaded what he might hear. The voice that came through the speakers was calm, professional, and terrifyingly casual. "General Vextar, this is Master Sergeant Elena Rodriguez, Reaper Squad. We need to talk." "You're in no position to make demands, human," Vextar replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "Actually, we are. Look at your tactical display again. Really look at it." Vextar studied the readouts more carefully. The scattered positions of his forces suddenly made sense in a new and horrible way. His troops weren't randomly distributed across the battlefield. They were arranged in a perfect formation, with every unit positioned exactly where the humans wanted them. "You see it now?" Rodriguez continued. "Your forces are in kill zones. Every group, every individual soldier, every vehicle is exactly where we planned for them to be 6 hours ago. We've been hurting you like animals." The general's blood went cold as he realized the truth. The entire battle hadn't been chaotic at all. It had been choreographed. Every human attack, every retreat, every apparent mistake had been designed to move his forces into predetermined positions. "Impossible," he whispered. "Sergeant Torres, show the general what we mean." Suddenly, every piece of abandoned mining equipment on the moon activated simultaneously. Excavators began digging, crushers started grinding, transport conveyors moved at full speed. The entire moon became a massive machine, and every hegemony soldier was positioned perfectly to be affected by it. But instead of killing them, the machines created barriers. Walls of earth rose between different groups. Conveyor belts moved wounded soldiers to safe areas. Mining platforms elevated trapped warriors out of dangerous positions. "We could have done that 6 hours ago," Rodriguez explained. "We could have killed your entire force in the first 10 minutes. Instead, we chose to give you an education." Vextar felt his legs go weak. "Why?" "Because dead soldiers don't carry messages. Sit down, General. This conversation is going to take a while." On the moon's surface, the fighting had completely stopped. Human soldiers emerged from concealment for the first time since the battle began. But instead of continuing to attack, they began providing medical aid to wounded aliens. Corporal Jackson approached a group of injured Korth warriors. The aliens raised their weapons defensively, expecting execution. Instead, Jackson began treating their wounds with human medical supplies. "Easy there, big guys," he said calmly. "Fight's over. Time to patch you up." Chieftain Graktos watched in amazement as the human soldier who had been killing his warriors an hour earlier now worked to save their lives. "Why do you help us?" "Because that's what professionals do," Jackson replied while bandaging a wounded arm. "We're not monsters. We're soldiers. There's a difference." The same scene was playing out across the battlefield. Human operators were providing aid, water, and even food to their former enemies. The aliens who had come to kill them were being treated with professional courtesy and medical care. Unit Commander Prime 7 was freed from the gravity trap by Sergeant Torres, who had built the device in the first place. The synthetic soldier's logical programming couldn't process what was happening. "Query: why do you assist enemy forces?" "Because the battle's over," Torres explained while checking Prime 7's systems for damage. "You lost. Now we make sure you survive to remember why." The fragmented Nexali were the most disturbing to help. Without their hive mind connection, they were like children, lost, confused, and frightened. Specialist Rodriguez worked with their communication equipment to restore partial network connectivity. As their shared consciousness slowly returned, the Nexali began to understand what had happened to them. Harmony of Battle felt the horror of the entire battalion as they realized how completely they had been outmatched. "Your species fights with our minds," she said to Rodriguez. "We fight with whatever works," Rodriguez replied. "Your hive mind was your strength, so we made it your weakness. That's what we do." Back in orbit, General Vextar listened as Master Sergeant Rodriguez explained exactly how the battle had been won. Every tactic, every trap, every psychological manipulation was laid out in clinical detail. "Your Korth warriors are brave, but they think in terms of individual honor. We used that against them by making every fight personal and isolated. Your synthetic soldiers are logical, but they can't adapt when their basic assumptions are wrong. We changed the rules of engagement faster than they could recalculate. Your Nexali are strong when connected, but vulnerable when isolated. We turned their greatest asset into their biggest liability." Vextar felt sick as he realized how thoroughly his forces had been analyzed and countered. "You knew. You knew exactly what we would do." "We've been fighting aliens for 15 years, Rodriguez explained. "Every species thinks they're unique. Every military force thinks they have the perfect solution. But you all make the same mistake. You assume we fight like you do. How do you fight? However we need to. We adapt. We improvise. We turn your strengths into our weapons. Most importantly, we don't limit ourselves to what's supposed to work. We use what does work." The conversation continued for an hour. Rodriguez explained human special operations philosophy with the patience of a teacher and the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. Vextar found himself taking notes. "Here's what you're going to do," Rodriguez said finally. "You're going to take your survivors and leave. You're going to report exactly what happened here. You're going to explain to your superiors why hiring 3,000 elite soldiers to kill 12 humans was the worst decision your species ever made. And if I refuse, then you'll die here, along with every soldier you brought. We've been polite so far because we're professionals. But if you want to restart this fight, we can finish it in about 10 minutes. Vextar believed her completely. The evacuation began immediately. Wounded aliens were loaded onto medical transports. Disabled equipment was abandoned. The mighty Hegemony Assault Force limped away from Sigma-7 Moon in defeat and humiliation. But the humans weren't finished with their lesson. As the last transport prepared to leave, Master Sergeant Rodriguez appeared on General Vextar's bridge. She wasn't armed. She wasn't threatening. She was just there, somehow having infiltrated his flagship without anyone noticing. "One more thing," she said casually. "We want to make sure you understand something important." Vextar's bridge crew raised their weapons, but Rodriguez ignored them completely. "We let you live. We let your soldiers live. We helped you evacuate your wounded. We even gave you medical supplies for the trip home. Do you know why?" The general shook his head. "Because mercy is more terrifying than slaughter. Any animal can kill. Only apex predators can choose not to. Remember that when you write your report." She turned and walked toward the exit, then paused at the door. "Oh, and General? If anyone else wants to try hunting human elite forces, remind them that we were gentle with you. Next time, we might not be in such a good mood." Rodriguez vanished as mysteriously as she had appeared, leaving Vextar and his crew staring at empty air. The journey back to Hegemony space was quiet. 3,000 elite soldiers had been reduced to broken survivors by 12 humans who treated the entire operation as routine training. The psychological impact was devastating. Word of the Sigma-7 incident spread throughout the galaxy within days. Every mercenary company, every military force, every government received the same message. Human elite forces were not just dangerous. They were educational. They would teach you exactly why fighting them was a mistake, and they would make sure you lived to share that lesson. Ambassador Kethvar received a final communication from Nexus Station. The mercenary exchange had updated their policies. Contracts targeting human special operations forces were now permanently banned. The posting simply read, "Some legends are best left alone." At the bottom of the notice was a small addendum that would become famous throughout the galaxy. Human elite forces are considered a protected galactic heritage site. Approach with extreme caution and professional respect. Failure to comply may result in educational experiences of potentially traumatic intensity. Back on Sigma-7, Reaper Squad prepared for their next mission. The destruction of the largest anti-human force in galactic history was logged as routine paperwork. Master Sergeant Rodriguez filed her after-action report with the same casual professionalism that made human special operations forces so terrifying to contemplate as enemies. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Some prey was too dangerous to hunt, not because it would fight back, but because it would win. And then politely explain exactly why you never should have tried. Human elite forces remained untouchable. Their reputation secured not just by their ability to kill, but by their choice of when not to. That restraint was somehow more frightening than any weapon, and the wise species of the galaxy understood that some legends existed because they were absolutely, terrifyingly true.